At the intersection of Broad Street and Meeting Street, you will find the Four Corners of Law. This is St. Michael's Church, which represents God's law, and across the street from that is the Charleston County Courthouse, which represents the county law. Across from that is the Charleston City Hall, which represents city law. And today, we're going to talk about the United States Postal Service and Federal Courthouse, which represents federal law. While these four historic buildings had stood here for generations, the intersection gained worldwide recognition thanks to Robert Ripley, creator of Ripley's Believe It or Not. During a visit to Charleston in the early 1930s, Ripley was fascinated that all four corners of a single intersection represented different systems of law. He popularized the name the Four Corners of Law, and the nickname has remained ever since, becoming one of Charleston's most enduring and recognizable landmarks. The history of this particular piece of land goes back much further than the post office that we see today. During the period of the British rule, this property was actually used as the site of gallows for public executions. Later, a police guardhouse stood here. That guardhouse was badly damaged during Charleston's devastating earthquake of 1886 and was eventually demolished. The destruction created an opportunity for something completely new. In 1887, Congress authorized funding for the construction of a new federal building that would house both the Charleston Post Office and its federal courts. The building was designed by noted Charleston architect John Henry Devereux, an Irish immigrant who became one of the Low Country's prominent architects. Devereux chose the grand Second Renaissance Revival style, giving the building the appearance and dignity of an Italian Renaissance palace. Construction was completed in 1896 at a cost of approximately $500,000, an enormous investment at the time. When the building was completed, Charleston celebrated with a gala viewing that event, including a German band. The historic postal lobby features carved mahogany woodwork, stone columns, brass and ironwork, and an impressive marble staircase. The building would also become connected to an important chapter in American civil rights history. Federal Judge J. Waite Waring served here during the 1940s and early 1950s and issued several groundbreaking rulings challenging racial segregation. His work, including his powerful dissent into Briggs versus Elliott, helped lay important groundwork for the fight against segregation in America's public schools. In 1974, the United States Post Office and Courthouse was individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places, recognizing its architectural and historical significance. Now, one of the little surprises waiting inside this historic post office is something you might not expect. Charleston has its very own postal museum right here inside the building. It's not a huge museum. In fact, it's a small, one room collection tucked inside this beautiful old post office. But what it lacks in size, it certainly makes up for in charm and history. As you look around, you'll find pieces of postal history that takes us back to a time long before email, text messages, and overnight tracking. And standing among all of these pieces of postal history is a mannequin dressed in historic postal uniform, giving us a visual reminder of the people who actually did the work of delivering America's mail. It's one thing to look at the old stamps, typewriters, mailboxes, and equipment, but seeing the uniform helps bring the history to life. Letter carriers had to make their way through Charleston's streets and neighborhoods, carrying the mail directly to the people who were waiting for it. The uniform also represented something important. When a postal carrier appeared in the neighborhood, people immediately recognized that person as a representative of the United States Post Office. This is the 5-cent Charleston, South Carolina postage paid stamp, dating back to 1861 in the beginning of the Civil War. When the Southern states separated from the United States, the newly formed Confederacy had a problem. It needed its own postal system, but regular Confederate postage stamps were not yet readily available. So postmasters in a number of Southern cities began creating their own temporary stamps, known today as postmasters' provisionals. The window clerk was often the face of the post office, helping customers purchase stamps, calculate postage, and send their letters and packages on their way. And once the mail left the clerk's hands, the next step was processing it. As the volume of mail continued to grow, doing everything by hand simply wasn't practical. That's where machines like this electric canceling machine came in, helping the post office process mail faster and more efficiently. Once the mail was canceled and processed, it was time to prepare it for delivery. This is where the mail carrier's case came into play. Before heading out on their route, carriers would stand at a case like this and carefully sort each piece of mail into individual slots arranged by street and addresses. Once everything was organized in delivery order, the carrier could gather the mail and head out into the community, bringing the mail right to your door. And that wraps up our visit to Charleston's Postal Museum. From the old window clerk and canceling machine to the carrier's case and bicycle, these exhibits give us a glimpse into the history of how the mail has been processed and delivered through the years. And what I find so interesting is that even though the equipment and technology have changed, the basic mission really hasn't. You accept the mail, process it, sort it, and get it delivered. And before we leave, I think it's important to remember that behind every piece of mail is a postal worker who helps get it where it needs to go. Through the heat, the cold, the rain, long days, and early mornings, postal workers have been serving our communities for generations. The equipment may have changed, but the dedication it takes to move America's mail has remained much the same. So, as we look back at Charleston's postal history, let's also take a moment to appreciate the clerks, carriers, mail handlers, and everyone working behind the scenes, past and present, who have helped keep our communities connected. To all of our postal workers, thank you for what you do. And thank you for exploring Charleston with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on our next adventure as we continue to discover Charleston one place at a time.